The planet Glargon was a world sculpted by the sea. Its continents were sprawling kelp forests, its mountains shimmering coral reefs, and its skies perpetually overcast with a salty mist. Here, the Glargon High Command held dominion, a civilization as rigidly structured as the coral that formed their cities. Every aspect of Glargon life was dictated by the Grand Algorithmic Codex, a set of rules so complex and all-encompassing that even the most seasoned Glargon strategist occasionally needed a refresher course. At the apex of this aquatic autocracy was Commander Krill. Krill, a formidable Glargon warrior with eyes like polished obsidian and gills that pulsed with relentless ambition, dreamed of galactic conquest. He envisioned a Glargon empire stretching across the cosmos, all other species bowing before the might of Glargon's meticulously planned military campaigns. His office, located in the deepest, most fortified sector of the High Command, was a testament to his strategic mind. Holographic battle simulations flickered on every surface, and the air hummed with the low thrum of advanced tactical analysis. Glargon technology, while undeniably advanced, often took bizarre forms dictated by their unique physiology and cultural obsession with order. Their starships, for instance, resembled colossal bioluminescent jellyfish, propelled by precisely calibrated bursts of ionized seawater. Weaponry was similarly peculiar. The Glargons favored sonic disruptors that emitted specific frequencies known to destabilize the internal organs of their enemies. Frequencies so precise that they required constant recalibration to account for variations in atmospheric pressure and the target's emotional state. Their adherence to protocol bordered on the absurd. Every action, from the consumption of nutrient paste to the deployment of planetary defense systems, was governed by a series of intricate procedures, each step meticulously documented and rigorously enforced. Deviations from the Codex were met with swift and merciless punishment, ensuring that the Glargon society remained a perfectly synchronized, ruthlessly efficient machine. New recruits spent years learning the exact angle at which to hold their ceremonial tridents during High Council meetings, and even minor infractions, such as an improperly polished gill plate, could result in demotion or, worse, mandatory re-education. Commander Krill reviewed the latest intelligence reports, his brow furrowed in concentration. The preliminary scans were complete. His personal observation chamber, usually filled with tactical maps, was now a sterile holding cell, illuminated by harsh blue light. His prize, or rather his problem, was now visible. Commander Krill swam closer, his bioluminescent markings glowing with anticipation. Today, Glargon would demonstrate its superior might. Today, the galaxy would take notice. In stark contrast to the meticulously ordered world of Glargon, the human prisoner, Dave, seemed utterly out of place. He was slumped in the center of the cell, clad in what appeared to be faded denim trousers and a t-shirt bearing a logo that the Glargon translators identified as mostly harmless. His hair was disheveled, his posture was relaxed to the point of near horizontal, and his expression suggested a profound disinterest in his current predicament. Dave had been apprehended near the Xylos Nebula after his small battered spacecraft drifted into Glargon territory. The official reason for his capture remained classified, known only to Commander Krill and a select few members of the High Command. The truth was far more perplexing. Dave's ship triggered no fewer than 73 separate Glargon defense protocols, each designed to neutralize potential threats. And yet, instead of retaliating, fleeing, or even showing the slightest sign of alarm, Dave had simply shrugged, powered down his engines, and requested a beverage. The Glargons, a species renowned for their strategic brilliance and unwavering discipline, were completely baffled. They had expected resistance, fear, perhaps even a desperate attempt at negotiation. What they received was indifference. Dave's laid-back attitude was a glaring anomaly in the meticulously calculated universe of the Glargon High Command. "So," Dave drawled, breaking the silence as Commander Krill approached, "when do I get that drink?" His voice, amplified by the cell's acoustics, echoed through the chamber, further irritating Krill. Krill narrowed his obsidian eyes, his gills fluttering with suppressed annoyance. "You are a prisoner of the Glargon High Command. Your comfort is of no consequence. Dave merely chuckled, a dry, humorless sound that seemed to mock the very foundations of Glargon authority. Yeah, I get the whole evil empire vibe. But seriously, even evil empires have beverage options, right? I'm parched. His gaze drifted around the cell. And this decor? A little monochromatic, don't you think? The Glargons had anticipated a formidable warrior, a cunning strategist, perhaps even a desperate rebel leader. What they got was a wisecracking human with an apparent obsession with hydration and interior design. Krill found himself struggling to reconcile this individual with the dire threat assessment provided by his intelligence officers. Was this some elaborate ruse? A subtle form of psychological warfare? Or was this human simply simple? The complete lack of fear was particularly unsettling. Glargons were raised from birth to respect, even fear, the might of the High Command. The Decimator of Souls was legendary. The brutal efficiency of Glargon military campaigns was well documented throughout the galaxy. And yet here was Dave, lounging in his cell as if he were waiting for a bus, completely unfazed by the prospect of facing the ultimate weapon. Do you not understand the gravity of your situation, human? Krill demanded, his voice rising slightly. You stand accused of violating Glargon space. You will face judgment. Dave yawned, stretching languidly. Look, I'm sure whatever galactic parking ticket I racked up can be sorted out. Just point me to the nearest intergalactic DMV, and I'll fill out the forms. But first, that drink? I'm dying here. Krill stared at Dave, his mind reeling. This human was an enigma, a walking, talking paradox that defied all logic and reason. He represented a level of cultural incomprehension that threatened to unravel the very fabric of Glargon society. The commander sensed that dealing with Dave would require a level of creativity and adaptability that even the grand algorithmic codex might not be able to provide. Commander Krill, despite his growing frustration, adhered to Glargon protocol. He had a plan, a method to break the human's insolent facade. He would subject Dave to the ultimate test, a trial by combat unlike any other in the galaxy. The arena was prepared, the crowd gathered, and the weapon was ready. The great arena of Glargon Prime was a colossal structure carved from the living rock of the planet itself. Tiered seating ascended towards a vast, artificially illuminated sky, capable of holding millions of Glargon spectators. The air crackled with anticipation, the collective consciousness of the crowd, a palpable force. They had come to witness the might of Glargon, embodied in its most terrifying creation. In the center of the arena, bathed in the harsh glare of the artificial sun, stood a simple platform. Upon it rested the object of their fear and reverence, the Decimator of Souls. The Decimator was not merely a weapon, it was a symbol of Glargon dominance, a testament to their technological prowess, and a tool of unimaginable destructive power. Legends surrounding the Decimator were whispered in hushed tones throughout the galaxy. It was said to be capable of vaporizing entire starships, shattering planets, and even, according to some accounts, erasing beings from existence. The very name evoked terror, and its presence was enough to quell rebellions and enforce Glargon authority across countless star systems. The device itself was deceptively unassuming. It resembled a sleek obsidian obelisk approximately 10 feet in height, adorned with intricate carvings that pulsed with a faint, ethereal light. No visible mechanisms betrayed its function, no triggers, no barrels, only the smooth, polished surface and the unsettling hum that emanated from within. Commander Krill, standing on a raised dais overlooking the arena, addressed the assembled masses. His voice, amplified by advanced sonic technology, boomed across the stadium. People of Glargon, today you will witness the power that safeguards our civilization, the instrument of our absolute will. Behold the Decimator of Souls. Paused for effect, allowing the name to resonate in the minds of the audience. A wave of nervous excitement rippled through the crowd. Krill continued, his tone hardening. Before you stands a prisoner, A being who dared to trespass upon Glargon space, who dared to defy our authority. He will be given a chance to prove his worth, to demonstrate whether he possesses the strength and courage to face the Decimator. A spotlight focused on a tunnel leading into the arena. The gates hissed open and Dave was unceremoniously shoved onto the sand. He stumbled, catching his balance, and squinted up at the blinding light. A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. This was the fearsome invader, this scruffy human? Dave surveyed the scene, his gaze lingering on the Decimator of souls. He scratched his chin thoughtfully. Okay, he said, his voice carrying surprisingly well in the vast arena. So, is this like a presentation? Because I totally forgot to. Prepare slides. Commander Krill's gills flared. Slides? What primitive barbarism was this human spouting now? Silence, Earth creature. You are in the presence of the Decimator. Prepare to fight. He gestured dramatically towards the obelisk, expecting Dave to cower, to beg for mercy, to at least show some semblance of fear. Dave, however, simply shrugged. Fight? Nah, I'm good. A collective gasp swept through the arena. Good? He was good? This was unheard of. To refuse a challenge, especially one ordained by Commander Krill himself, was an act of unimaginable defiance. The Glargon spectators buzzed with outrage and disbelief. Krill, his face contorting in a mixture of fury and confusion, sputtered, You refuse? Do you understand the consequences of your insubordination? The Decimator awaits. Dave yawned, a gesture that seemed to physically pain the gathered Glargons. Look, I appreciate the offer, I really do. But fighting's just not my thing, you know? Against my principles. He stuffed his hands in his pockets, rocking back on his heels. Besides, that thing looks kind of boring. Is there like a snack bar around here? I'm starving. Principles? Snack bar. The words were meaningless in the context of Glargon's rigid martial code. Krill felt his carefully constructed authority crumbling before his very eyes. He clenched his fists, struggling to maintain his composure. This human was an anomaly, a glitch in the system, and he was disrupting everything. Principles? Krill boomed, his voice echoing across the arena. You dare speak of principles before the might of Glargon? Your principles are irrelevant. You will fight or you will face the consequences. Dave sighed dramatically. Consequences, always with the consequences. Can't a guy just chill for like 5 minutes without someone threatening him with whatever that thing is supposed to do? He pointed at the Decimator. Seriously, what is that thing anyway? Looks like a fancy paperweight. The Glargon detention center was a symphony of precisely timed clicks and whirs, every action dictated by millennia of unwavering protocol. Then came Dave. He treated the whole place like a particularly drab hotel. During meal distribution, a solemn ceremony involving the precise allocation of nutrient paste, Dave asked, Hey, you got any ketchup? The Glargon administering the paste short-circuited, its optical sensors flashing error codes. Ketchup was not in the dietary regulations. It was not in any regulations. It simply was not. Another time, observing the Glargon guards performing their synchronized patrol, Dave inquired, So is this like a union thing? Do you guys get dental? The guards, whose understanding of humor extended only to battlefield tactics, exchanged confused glances, their antennae twitching nervously. Was this some form of psychological warfare? Even sleep was not immune to Dave's disruptive influence. While the Glargons entered their designated stasis cycles in perfect unison, Dave snored. Loudly. He also had the audacity to dream, muttering nonsensical phrases like, pineapple pizza, extra cheese. Commander Krill, observing all this through surveillance monitors, felt a headache forming behind his eyes. This human's utter disregard for Glargon customs was not only infuriating but unsettling. Was it possible that their entire culture was being mocked? The interrogations were no better. When asked about his home planet's defenses, Dave launched into a rambling explanation of Earth's traffic laws, complete with hand gestures and sound effects. So, you see, the left lane is for passing, but only if you're going faster than the guy in the right lane. He trailed off, noticing the blank stares. Never mind. His personal hygiene also became a point of contention. The Glargons, being aquatic, maintained cleanliness through a complex system of sonic vibrations and filter feeding. Dave, on the other hand, requested something called soap. Soap? Krill echoed, baffled. What is the purpose of this soap? To get clean? Dave replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. You know, wash off the grime, the funk? He snapped his fingers. The stank? The Glargons remained uncomprehending. It wasn't just his words, it was his body, language. The Glargons communicated through subtle shifts in bioluminescence and precise fin movements. Dave flailed. He gesticulated wildly. He slouched. He even smiled, for no discernible reason. One particularly egregious incident involved the sacred meditation chamber. The Glargons used the chamber to achieve perfect mental clarity, a state essential for strategic planning. Dave wandered in looking for a quiet place to nap. Finding the chamber filled with chanting Glargons, he simply said, "Whoa, dudes, are you guys in a cult? Can I join? I make a mean Kool-Aid." The resulting psychic disruption caused a planet-wide systems failure, briefly knocking out their communication network. Krill was reaching his breaking point. This human wasn't just different. He was a walking, talking, snoring, soap-demanding affront to everything Glargon stood for. And yet, something about Dave's utter lack of concern was fascinating. Perhaps Krill thought with a shiver. This was the true weapon humanity possessed. Not brute force, but the terrifying power of utter, blissful ignorance. And maybe, just maybe, it was more dangerous than any decimator of souls. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of Glargon bewilderment and Dave's unrelenting Daveness. He continued to refuse to fight, offering a variety of increasingly improbable excuses. He claimed he had a doctor's appointment. He said his horoscope warned against violent aquatic encounters. He even tried to argue that gladiatorial combat was a violation of intergalactic labor laws. Commander Krill, now sporting a permanent twitch in his left eye stalk, could only splutter in frustration. But the honor, the glory, the opportunity to crush your enemies before them. Dave simply shrugged. Nah, I'm good. I'd probably just pull a hamstring anyway. With no other recourse and driven by a desperate need to understand this infuriating creature, Dave was left largely unsupervised in his cell. Krill rationalized it as a chance to study him, to unlock the secrets of humanity's baffling indifference. In reality, it was because the Glargons couldn't stand being around him for more than 5 minutes at a stretch. So, Dave, left to his own devices, began to examine the Decimator of Souls. It stood in the corner of his cell, a towering monolith of polished obsidian and shimmering conduits, humming with barely contained power. Or at least, that's what it looked like. The Glargons had described it as a weapon of unimaginable destruction, capable of shattering planets and vaporizing entire civilizations. It was their most prized possession, a symbol of their military might and technological prowess. Dave, however, approached it with the casual curiosity of a bored handyman. He poked, he prodded, he even tried to unscrew a small panel with a smuggled spork. The Glargon guards, watching nervously from the surveillance monitors, debated whether to intervene. Protocol dictated immediate termination for anyone tampering with the Decimator, but they were also morbidly curious to see what the human would do. After several hours of fiddling, Dave finally managed to pry open the panel. He peered inside, his eyebrows arching in surprise. "Well, I'll be," he muttered. "This isn't a weapon at all." He emerged from the cell, casually strolling into the Glargon High Command Center, the open panel dangling from his hand. The assembled Glargons, including a visibly agitated Commander Krill, stared at him in stunned silence. Guys," Dave began, holding up the panel. "I think there's been a slight misunderstanding." He paused for dramatic effect. "This Decimator of Souls, it's a karaoke machine." A ripple of disbelief spread through the High Command. A karaoke machine? The Decimator of Souls? It was preposterous. Impossible. Blasphemy. Commander Krill felt another twitch developing. this time in his right eye stalk. "Kara, what?" he managed to croak, his voice a strained gurgle. "Karaoke," Dave repeated, enunciating carefully. "You know, singing with music, like Bohemian Rhapsody, but with more tentacles." He gestured towards the open panel. "See? Microphone input, holographic display, even a little compartment for song cartridges. Though I gotta say, the Glargon song selection is pretty limited," he then proceeded to demonstrate, plugging in a random cable and pressing a button. The Decimator of Souls, the most feared weapon in the galaxy, flickered to life, displaying a scrolling list of Glargon battle hymns. A tinny, synthesized version of Ode to Conquest filled the room. The Glargons were speechless. Their ultimate weapon, a karaoke machine? It couldn't be true. It simply couldn't be. But the evidence was undeniable. The humming monolith, the symbol of their power, was nothing more than a glorified entertainment system. Dave, oblivious to the chaos he had unleashed, grabbed a nearby datapads and began scrolling through the song list. "Hey, any requests? I do a killer space oddity." The foundations of Glargon society began to crack. Dave, never one to miss an opportunity, wasted no time. He rummaged through the Decimator's song cartridge compartment, unearthing a dusty collection of Glargon war chants and ceremonial dirges. "Right, first things first," he announced, ejecting the cartridge with a flourish. "We're gonna need some real music." He then proceeded to connect his ancient battered Earth MP3 player to the karaoke machine via a series of adapters and sheer willpower. The Glargons watched, their multifaceted eyes wide with a mixture of horror and morbid curiosity, as the Decimator's holographic display flickered, resolving into the familiar interface of a music library. "Okay, let's start with something accessible," Dave mused, scrolling through his collection. Here we go. A classic." With a tap, he selected Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody and hit play. The opening chords reverberated through the high command, a cacophony of sound unlike anything the Glargons had ever experienced. Commander Krill, his eye stalks now twitching in perfect synchronicity, felt a strange sensation, something akin to enjoyment. It was quickly suppressed, of course, but the seed had been planted. Dave, completely unconcerned with the existential crisis unfolding around him, grabbed the microphone and launched into the song with gusto. His voice, while not exactly operatic, was enthusiastic and surprisingly on key. "Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?" he belted out, his eyes closed in concentration. The Glargons, initially stunned into silence, began to stir. The complex harmonies, the soaring melody, the sheer emotional power of the music. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. Some began to sway slightly, their tentacles twitching in time with the rhythm. Others exchanged confused glances, unsure of what they were feeling. As the song reached its crescendo, Dave gestured, encouragingly towards the assembled Glargons. "Come on, guys, join in, it's more fun with backup singers." To his surprise, several of the younger Glargons tentatively approached the microphone, their faces a mixture of apprehension and excitement. The resulting chorus was chaotic, to say the least. The Glargons, with their limited vocal range and unfamiliarity with human musical scales, struggled to keep up. But their enthusiasm was undeniable. They squawked, they gurgled, they trilled, all in a valiant attempt to harmonize with Dave's rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. Commander Krill, witnessing this scene of utter pandemonium, felt his carefully constructed world crumbling around him. His high command, the bastion of Glargon military might, had been transformed into a bizarre karaoke bar. His soldiers, his loyal subordinates, were now belting out Queen songs with a human prisoner. He tried to intervene, to restore order, to salvage what was left of his authority. But the music, it was infectious. He found himself tapping his foot, humming along to the melody, even unconsciously mouthing the words. Before he knew it, he was standing next to Dave, sharing, the microphone belting out "Galileo! Galileo!" with all the enthusiasm of a drunken space pirate. The Glargon High Command had fallen. The age of karaoke had begun. Commander Krill stood amidst the swirling chaos, his normally rigid posture now trembling. The sounds of off-key, Glargon warbles mixed with Dave's surprisingly decent rendition of "Another One Bites the Dust" assaulted his auditory sensors. His eye stalks darted frantically, trying to latch onto something familiar, something authoritative. But all he saw were his soldiers, his elite guard, swaying rhythmically, their faces contorted in expressions of something resembling joy. "Enough!" he bellowed, his voice a distorted rasp amplified by his internal translator. The karaoke sputtered to a halt, and the assembled Glargons turned to face him, their expressions a mixture of confusion and annoyance. This is madness. We are Glargons, warriors, conquerors, not singers." Dave, unfazed, simply shrugged and adjusted the microphone stand. "Hey, don't knock it till you try it, Krill. Besides, you were getting into it. I saw you doing the little head bob thing." He pointed a finger, singling out the commander. "Denial ain't just a river in Egypt, buddy." Krill's gills flared. "I was merely observing, assessing the threat level of this musical invasion." He stammered, the words feeling hollow even to his own ears. "We must restore order. We must reclaim our purpose. We must sing the Glargon anthem." He snatched the microphone from Dave, his tentacles fumbling with the unfamiliar device. He punched in the code for the Glargon national anthem, a dirge-like composition designed to inspire fear and obedience. The opening bars filled the chamber, a slow, droning melody that was the antithesis of everything Dave had played so far. The Glargons, initially subdued by Krill's outburst, began to fidget. The anthem, once a source of pride and unity, now sounded dull, lifeless. A few of the younger Glargons exchanged glances, their antennae drooping. Krill, oblivious, continued to sing, his voice cracking and straining with forced fervor. Midway through the anthem, a Glargon lieutenant, usually stoic and unwavering, burst into tears. It's so depressing," he wailed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "I can't take it anymore. I want to sing 'Don't Stop Me Now' again." His outburst was a dam break. Other Glargons began to sob, to wail, to demand more upbeat music. The carefully constructed facade of Glargon military discipline crumbled before Krill's very eyes. He watched, helpless, as his soldiers devolved into a mass of emotional, karaoke-starved invertebrates. Krill's mind, finely tuned for strategic warfare and galactic conquest, couldn't process the sensory overload. Logic circuits short-circuited, protocols dissolved, and the rigid structure of his authority imploded. The weight of centuries of Glargon tradition, the burden of expectation, the sheer absurdity of the situation, it was all too much. He dropped the microphone, his tentacles flailing wildly. I don't understand," he shrieked, his voice cracking. "What is happening to my high command? What is happening to my Glargons? What is happening to me?" Dave, ever the pragmatist, calmly picked up the microphone and patted Krill on the back. "Easy there, Chief, just gotta roll with the punches, you know? Life's too short to be singing depressing space anthems." He paused, considering. "Although, I gotta say, your rendition was unique." Krill stared blankly at Dave, his multifaceted eyes devoid of comprehension. The world swam around him, a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds. He felt a strange, tingling sensation in his tentacles, a primal urge to dance, to sing, to let go. Before he could fully process the thought, Dave cranked up the volume on the karaoke machine and launched into a rousing rendition of "Livin' on a Prayer." And against his better judgment, against everything he stood for, Commander Krill found himself tapping his foot, humming along, and finally singing along with gusto. His authority had crumbled, but something new was being built in its place, something strangely liberating. The transformation of the Glargon High Command was swift and absolute. Karaoke became the new cornerstone of their society. War drills, were replaced with vocal warm-ups, strategic planning sessions morphed into songwriting workshops, and the Galactic Conquest fleet was retrofitted with state-of-the-art sound systems. The Glargons, once feared throughout the galaxy, were now known for their elaborate karaoke parties and surprisingly catchy space anthems. Dave, the unassuming human who had inadvertently sparked this cultural revolution, became a galactic celebrity. He was hailed as a visionary, a prophet of harmony and the savior of the Glargon race. Statues were erected in his honor, parades were thrown in his name, and his image was plastered on everything from nutrient paste packets to space cruiser billboards. He even got an offer to host his own intergalactic karaoke competition. Krill's choice, a tongue-in-cheek reference to the former commander. Commander Krill, stripped of his rank but strangely content, became Dave's most enthusiastic protege. He embraced karaoke with a fervor that bordered on religious zeal, mastering every genre from soulful ballads to heavy metal anthems. He even formed a band with a group of former soldiers, the Krill Tones, who quickly became a local sensation. His transformation was complete. The militaristic tyrant was gone, replaced by a karaoke-loving enthusiast. The Glargons' newfound love for music had a profound impact on their interactions with the rest of the galaxy. They abandoned their aggressive expansionist policies, opting instead to spread their message of peace and harmony through the power of song. They hosted intergalactic karaoke festivals, inviting species from across the cosmos to come together and celebrate their shared love of music. The galaxy, once teetering on the brink of war, found itself united by the universal language of song. Dave, standing on the balcony of his lavish Glargon apartment overlooking a sea of singing, dancing aliens, couldn't help but grin. He never expected his little act of rebellion to lead to such a dramatic shift in galactic affairs. All he wanted was to avoid fighting in some ridiculous arena, and somehow he'd accidentally ushered in an era of intergalactic peace and harmony. He took a long sip of his synthale, watching the Glargons below belt out a surprisingly coordinated rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody. The scene was surreal, absurd, and utterly perfect. He shook his head, a wry smile playing on his lips. It was just like humanity to stumble into galactic significance through sheer dumb luck and a healthy dose of sarcasm. As the music swelled and the Glargons swayed in unison, Dave leaned against the railing and offered a deadpan observation about intergalactic relations. You know, he mused to himself, I always knew the key to world peace was just a decent karaoke machine and a solid playlist. He paused, taking another swig of his drink. Who knew?